I know this is crazy because humans have never messed up anything before. We never leave messes or anything like that. But in space we do. Just like we have litter and garbage and things around here on Earth, the same thing happens up in space actually. We've got stuff whizzing around all over the place up there. And so this space junk or space debris is really just anything that's left over from us going to space, taking things to space. So if it's an operational satellite, that's not space junk. We're under control. We know what's going on. We're using it. That's not junk, that's some good stuff. But if it's an old satellite, pieces of an old satellite, that's junk. That's useless. It's just getting in the way. In our previous video, we talked about using launch vehicles to get from the surface of the Earth to space. Once you're in space, sometimes you still need another part of the rocket, another stage to get to a different orbit. When you get to that new orbit where it's exactly where you want it to be, you don't need that leftover rocket part anymore, that rocket body. So you will let that go. The thing is though, is that it's still in orbit. So you have these rocket bodies that are also still orbiting the Earth, just left over from moving from one orbit to another. This may be crazy to think, but astronauts also sometimes cause space junk. Not that we have astronauts floating around, but they have, while doing spacewalks, created space junk. They're not creating thousands of pieces of space debris, space junk out there, but for example, a toolkit was lost during a spacewalk one time. Shoot, right off the edge, and there you go, space junk. One of the sources is anti-satellite missiles, which is a thing. So if you have a fancy missile, an anti-satellite missile, you could destroy a satellite too. But don't, please, because it makes a huge mess. It could be a big problem. Yeah, so at one point, China actually launched an anti-satellite missile at a satellite and destroyed it. And then the US military was like, yeah, you know, that sounds pretty cool. That sounds fun. We're gonna do it too. And you can aim it at a satellite and shoot it out of space. Well, it's still in space, but it's in thousands of pieces, making a big mess. These missiles are actually a lot smaller than launch vehicles because you don't have to go to orbit. Unlike other missiles and bombs that explode, because satellites are moving so fast, you really only need to get in front of it and that will destroy it enough. That's it. If you're in the way of a satellite, it's gonna be damaged. It's gonna be destroyed. You start with one satellite, you get in the way, and it breaks into many, many other satellites that are now space junk. They're not operational satellites anymore. We talked earlier about switching orbits using another part of the launch vehicle or another stage. In between the rockets, there are stages, and to separate stages, you use small explosions. They're controlled explosions, but even then, I've never seen an explosion that didn't create a huge mess. And when you do that in space, space junk. How do we know where this space junk is? The bigger stuff, at least. Things that are a couple centimeters or larger in low Earth orbit. We use radar to track rain, right? We know where all the rain is, we know how much is there. Turns out you can use radar to track space junk as well. We shoot it up there, it reflects some radar signal back, we can determine its orbit, and then we can keep track of it. And there's a big database keeping track of all the, we call them the orbital elements that describe what orbit the space junk is in. And then we can run computer models to sort of predict where everything's gonna be and make sure that our important spacecraft are not there. That's space junk. It's not a good situation. This has been another episode of So Much Science. I'm Brian Costanza. Thanks for watching. Go ahead and support us on Patreon, subscribe to the channel, or share with your friends. International Space... each one would... or then... dang it! So, tell me if you think of more later.